Hello, and welcome to episode 28 of the Pixel Related Podcast. It is December 4th, it's Sunday. It's at 5:47 p.m. on the West Coast, as always, because that's where I'm from, Kyle. I'm from the West Coast.
The only time that matters.
It's the only time that matters. It's the... actually, I will say, I always joke about this when I start the podcast about the Pacific time and stuff like that. Pacific time actually kind of sucks. Because
it totally does.
The world revolves around, or at least the United States revolves around Eastern Standard Time for the most part. And we get some benefits, like there are football games that are on super late at night. Imagine if you live on the East Coast, it's nothing very like there's a game going on that started like 15 minutes ago, and it's like whatever. Like I could stay up until 8:30 watching a football game, but God, that's 11:30 on the East Coast. That kind of sucks. But it also does mess things up where stuff that then starts super early is really early for us, and it's like F that.
Or it's all pre-recorded.
Like I'm trying to do stuff here. Like
yeah.
I always get the like, hey, we're gonna go to this show, except you're on the West Coast, and that way you'll go to your local news after this. And it's like, oh, I don't know local news. I wanted to watch, the Fox's, what do they call them? Animation Domination. I don't watch.
Really? Is that what you wanted to watch?
No, I haven't watched that in years.
Okay.
That's hey, you know what? I hear that Bob's Burgers is good. I've never watched it.
I've heard good things about Bob's Burgers, but that's
I know that the guy from Archer, the John H. Benjamin or H. John Benjamin, whatever his name, he is the same guy, and that guy's pretty funny. Because he's pretty great in Archer. Anyways, hey, I'm Kyle. The other person here is Addam.
Hi.
No, witty.
Nothing. I got nothing.
Got nothing.
You tapped me dry.
Okay. We're once again doing this on a Sunday evening, which generally means that we are gustless, unfortunately. But we're gonna push forward and we're gonna do it because we have the time, and there's actually some decent stuff to talk about this weekend. Because kind of out of nowhere, there was like a couple big shows that just hit. Like the Game Awards just came out of nowhere. Like honestly, I feel like I didn't hear anything about the Game Awards until like Tuesday. It's like, oh, there's the Game Awards are on Thursday. Okay, and I had to work all day Thursday, so I didn't get to watch them or anything like that. But there's those are always fun to see. They give awards to some games.
So were you able to catch up on that before they got hit with a copyright notice?
No, I didn't. I watched the trailers and I read who won. That's about all I needed to do.
They got hit. They got hit with a copyright notice. They got content ID'd.
Yeah, they got content ID'd.
It's great. That's fucking great. That's just perfect.
That's the world we live in.
That's video games.
That's video games, unfortunately. And then there was the PlayStation experience. Again, I kind of forgot that was happening.
I forgot it was a thing entirely.
Like I remember that PlayStation experience was a thing, and I remember hearing that something was about to happen, and then it was like, oh hey, the PlayStation experience was tonight, and it's like they announced a whole crap ton of stuff.
Yeah, like day before, like, oh yeah, it's at like 10 Pacific. I'm like, okay, that's like 1 o'clock over here. All right, I gotta plan around that now too. That I didn't even remember was a thing. They announced so much shit. So much. It was a thick show. It was a thick show.
So, but before we get to that, we do want to talk about a little bit of some recent games. I haven't been playing anything new per se. I finished up Watch Dogs. We talked decent enough about that game last time. I still don't know whether I like it or hate it. I don't know. But Addam, you have been playing a game that's what, like 11 years in the making, something like that.
10. 2006 is when it was announced. Same year as Last Guardian was announced.
Final Fantasy Versus 13. You've been playing. All right, tell us about it.
I finally played Versus 13. Final Fantasy 15. That game is really fucking good. Like so I put in about 10 hours over this last week of it, and man, it's an incredible game. Like the thing that I think that really sucked with playing what I played of 13, and that I didn't get past the first one because I found the first game just to be hallway, boring character. So I just kind of stopped after a certain point. And I know that supposedly 30 hours into that game, it gets incredible, but
it gets real good.
I don't care enough.
The tutorial, like the final tutorial, I think is around like 22 hours.
That's still way too much.
It's when they finally give you the ability to change the characters in your party at will that it opens up a little bit more. It's a little ridiculous, and the characters never get good.
Within an hour, I was like in a semi-open world in 15, and like going around doing hunts and shit. Like they learned their goddamn lesson. Like they did not have much hang-on time with the tutorials, which is really good, but in some ways it's maybe less than ideal because they do some stuff a bit later that's a little bit wonky. But so this game is really fucking good. So the characterization that they have, so it's basically these 4 characters have kind of it's basically a road trip game, which is really weird to say. So you play as Knack, who is the prince of this kingdom that has been at war with this other kingdom for a really long time, and they're going to wed these 2 characters, Knack and this other girl, Luna Freya, I think is her name. She hasn't been in the game much at this point, but they get married, and it kind of continues this truce, and things go down. That doesn't exactly happen. So kind of war breaks out between the 2 nations, basically. Everybody kind of thinks that Knack is dead, and so you kind of have to go around working with these underground organizations to try to overthrow this empire, basically.
Okay.
So kind of an interesting, like, it has, I think, a really strong start. So, like, you've probably seen, like, the footage of, like, them all kind of broke down on the road, like, and they have to, and, like, that's actually a gameplay part where you have to get out and you have to push this car, and then it starts playing Stand By Me, and it's, like, really bro-y, and
What?
and like there's a bit of homosexual tension, and that's fine. Like, that's totally fine. Ignis is bae. I'll just say that for me, because he is a. So you have these 4 characters. Knack is your kind of pretty straightforward protagonist. He's got a little bit of humor with this character. You have Gladius, who's kind of the enforcer character, big tough guy. Almost reminds me a little bit of Drax in Guardians of the Galaxy, kind of like a little bit of no nonsense, but then he kind of every so often he gets a good quip in.
Okay.
You have Prompto, who is the fucking moron of the group. He is just straight up an idiot for like an hour or 2 of the game. He's like, I really just want to ride a chocobo, and you're like, okay, calm the fuck down. And he's like, I'm gonna fuck her. I'm gonna do it. And they're like, yep, sure you're going to, dude. Sure you're going to. And then you have Ignis, who is the smart one, the smart one who actually is really funny. So they kind of all like fall into these pretty basic character archetypes of like funny one, tough one, protagonist, or leader, I guess, and smart one. But they're able to actually play around with that a bit by having these really good interactions with each other, which is something they thought was really lacking with 13. Like, the characters just never felt meshed together. They always were just kind of like, I'm really upset now. Like, you don't ever get like a ton of emotion out of them, I felt. It was all very flatline.
All the emotions in 13 were very just like sullen and moody and like, man, this sucks. Like, everything we're doing sucks. It was a really kind of downer game. So like them kind of having these 4 characters who interact with each other really well, pretty cool. So basically like the characters I think work together really well. I would say like the one thing I kind of dislike with it, I understand that they said they wanted to make a game about a group of guys who are going on a road trip, these young guys, and I get that, and that's fine. Like, I never had the problem with like GTA 5 doing that either. But the one female you run into
at least at the start of the game, is just kind of treated like a set of tits. And that's about it. Like, she doesn't have much character outside of, like, and every so often they just kind of have the camera just kind of lingering right down her shirt. It's a bit uncomfortable. Like, it gets a bit creepy.
And Final Fantasy is not usually about that either, which is kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, that's more like a Metal Gear Solid type of thing.
Right. And it's in, like, they're kind of trying to do it for laughs, it feels like some of the times, but then some of the times it's like, no, but seriously, look down.
Yeah, but isn't that the one that has like the VR experience? It's all about looking at girls or something like that.
There's a VR, that thing is not out yet, so
Okay.
I haven't had the chance to check it out. Yes, I think that it is like you are playing as Prompto and her Sydney, and yeah, like she's not a great character, and like as boring as I thought Lightning was, at least she was a character, a very boring character I thought, but a character nonetheless. So whatever. So then they've really changed up how combat works here too. So rather than it being like you have full control of your party, you can kind of command them around to do all the stuff. Like it's been so long since I played 13, but it was like it felt like you were kind of positioning characters and then they were performing the actions. I don't really remember a lot of it. So in 15, you basically are just playing as Noct. The rest of your team kind of acts as support for you. So they will, as you are going into a crowd of enemies, they will kind of take care of their own individuals and kind of go out on their own. You can build up a meter, which will allow you to do kind of a combo attack. So, like, say you have Gladius, who kind of is the big heavy weapon wielder. He will go through and he'll kind of like spin his big ass sword through a big group of them, and then you can kind of throw yourself into the fray. It's really good when you're fighting like 4 or 5 enemies. But then once they open up into the open world, which it's literally called the open world. So yeah, like you hit this point and you have to destroy this like Imperial checkpoint. And once you do that, it's like Chapter 3, the open world. And once you get into that, they will start saying, oh, now there are these Magitech ships that are dropping in Imperial soldiers. And they will drop them in like 10 at a time. And they all have guns. So, like, you have swords for the most part. So using swords against gun, it goes about as well as you would expect. You kind of keep getting your ass shot a lot. So the thing they have for that is like you can teleport. So you hit the triangle button and it'll warp you over to the group of enemies and then you can go in and slice. The problem is that there is very little control over how many enemies you're fighting. And on top of that, like you can get that group of 10 soldiers and then there will be another 10 wild beasts who will just decide to join in the fight. So I had like one fight that I think I counted like 25 enemies total. And it went bad. Like it went really, really bad. I was able to eventually finish it, but it took me a solid like 10 minutes. So they kind of overload you at a certain point. And the Magitech stuff is kind of, I guess, supposed to act as like, here's your random battle, right? So,
right, they're just dropping people onto the world.
Yes. Yeah, so like, okay, that's fine, but I'm still pretty low level, I feel like. And you kind of getting dropped into this group of enemies who can really tear you up, like it gets super, super difficult. I felt like super fast. And then beyond that, like there's just a lot of stuff going on with it. So like you have those random encounters, you have these hunts, which is like you'll go to a diner and they'll be like, hey, there are these beasts in this area. Can you go out and just kill them for us? And you have a hunter's guild basically that you're trying to rank up. And then there's also like, hey, can you maybe go around and start collecting parts for this car? Because then we can upgrade your car. And there's a point, like when you hit that open world where it's just like, there is so much shit going on here. And if I try to do everything in this, it's going to take me a long ass time. Like they have like chocobo racing and chocobo training. It's like you get these chocobos and like they have their own stamina meters. And the more that you move around with them, the higher that stuff will increase. And then they have quests to get extra chocobo items. And it's a really packed game. But the open world, like I think the open world is really good looking. Like it looks really good. They every so often, because you're kind of traveling with this four player group basically, they do like get some good dialogue just going between each other. So like you're just gonna be walking around and they'll be like talking about how like I really love chocobos, they're the best. And then they'll be like, well, I didn't know you loved chocobos that much. Like, yeah, I really love chocobos. And then it becomes a little bit creepy. Like it sounds like he loves chocobos.
To love chocobos.
Yeah, he loves chocobos. Yeah, like it's a really packed game. I'll say the one other issue I have with it is it feels like you have to watch that fucking Kingsglaive movie to get what's going on. Because I have no idea why these kingdoms are at war. I watched those like lore in 60-second videos. I watched one of those, and I still have no fucking clue what's going on.
I mean, come on, they're kingdoms. They don't like each other. Come on.
They're kingdoms, but they have crystals, and there are meteorites, and they're just like, oh yeah, they're at the meteorite crash site. Well, why the fuck is there a meteorite now? Why do we have to go there? Like, it feels like there's this huge world, and I guess they patched in, from what I heard, they actually patched in scenes from the movie.
Okay.
Which is a little bit weird. At a certain point, it's like, oh, now the kingdom is under attack. Why is it under attack? Like, what the fuck happened here? Who the fuck knows? And then I was like going through like the Kingsglaive wiki trying to figure out what was happening.
Well, I mean, is it chock full of like long like F&B cutscenes or whatever, like past Final Fantasies, or?
So there are some. The one that I'm thinking of, and I'm pretty sure that it's from the movie because it looks like nothing else in the game, is like you see the city and it has this shield over it basically, and you see the shield go down, and then all of a sudden there's like a fucking giant kaiju in the center of the town, and it's blowing stuff away, and then there's this Black Knight in the king's chamber, and he kills the king. It's like, it feels like that entire intro to the story for this. They're like, we could have this hour and a half, 2 hour, whatever cutscene in it, or we could just make it its own movie. And they're like, we'll just make it its own movie. I don't want to watch Kingsglaive. From everything I've heard, it's terrible.
Okay.
But I feel like, in a way, I will have to. So, that sucks. But yeah, like I think this is. I'm really glad that they made this Final Fantasy because I haven't really liked Final Fantasy in a really long time. The last one I really enjoyed was 9. I fucking love 9. Like, I think that 9 for me personally is the best of those games. Didn't like 10. Fucking hated 10 too. 12 I played like a little bit of, did not get into 13 at all, and then
didn't play the other ones. I feel like I never hear people talk about 12 at all. Like,
no, and the thing is, I've heard good things about it too, which is really weird.
Because I've had a lot of people recommend 10 to me. I think it's because I really liked Lost Odyssey on the Xbox 360, and people were telling me that 10 is similar to Lost Odyssey. I random side tangent. I just bought that, like the remake, the 10 and 10-2 on PS4.
Oh yeah.
it was like $8 on Target for Black Friday, and I was at home on like Thanksgiving, and I was just on my phone, and I'm like, okay, $8 sounds like a good deal for like 60 hours of gameplay, so I'll check that out at some point. I'm on record of I loved 13. You had to get past a lot of some of it quite boring and whatnot to get to the really good stuff. 13. But I love the combat in 13. So that's my thing is I want to talk about, because you kind of talked about it. The combat is like real time, but it's not. You're not like mashing buttons or anything like that.
Oh no, you absolutely are. No, you absolutely are.
Okay.
It's like straight up like you are hitting the circle button to do a sword slash, hitting the triangle to do these warp attacks. Like it is real time combat.
Okay. Like I heard people saying that you're not really. I think it was I was starting to watch the quick look on Giant Bomb, and they were saying you're not like hitting like square to attack. It's just you kind of hold down the attack button.
It's not a combo system. Like it's not like Bayonetta. Like you're not hitting like square triangle X. Like you're not doing that sort of thing. It's kind of like you hit the circle button, and that kind of does the attack, and then you have your triangle, which will allow you to do a teleport. Each of you have like different weapons. That's kind of the main thing you're switching between. So you have like 3 main weapons, at this point, like where I was playing is like I have 3 weapons and then a magic spell. So it's like I had like a sword, a broadsword, and then a pike, and then I had fire. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna go in there. I'm gonna use my fire to kind of get them out of this bunch, kill whatever I can off, and then kind of pick off the stragglers afterwards. So it's not like a deep action game, but it is like more active than I feel like Final Fantasy has been. Even when I played 13, I don't remember it being this active.
Well, no, 13 very much was what do they call it? Like active turn-based or something like that, where it's like there is turns going on and you have to go in order, but the action isn't necessarily pausing for you to sit and think about what you want to do. You're inputting commands and watching them happen in a turn-based way. And I loved what they did in 13, but that got very played out over the course of 3 games, which the other 2 were not great.
Right.
So that's the thing I'm most interested in is what they do with the combat.
The magic, I think, is also really interesting. So it's like you will find these veins of like, here is this electric rock, and you can kind of draw the electric energy out of that, or there's a fire one, or there's an ice one. And then basically you kind of take that energy and you can put it into just, hey, I want to have a fire spell, and it's going to have X amount of power. But then on top of that, you can start mixing in ingredients. So it's like you have food ingredients, because at the end of the day, if you camp, you can actually make food that'll give you like temporary stat boosts. But then you can take these ingredients, or you can take like your potions, Phoenix Sounds, any of that. And then if you mix that in, it'll give you like, hey, now you're doing Thundaga, and it's a 3 times damage at level 50, basically. Okay. So like they have like, and it feels like it's a huge magic system, which is really cool. The problem is that a lot of that shit has area of effect. So if your guys are in and they are fighting off a group of enemies, and you throw in fire, they will get fucking blown up too.
Or if you like all area effect, okay, or friendly fire, nice.
Yeah. So if you have like, or if you like use like Blizzaga, basically, like you and you will get hit by it too. So like at one point, like I threw like a huge level, like 50 whatever blizzard spell basically, and by the end of it, I think it had done more damage to me than to the enemy. So it's a really, I think it's actually like a really interesting and active magic system, as opposed to being like, okay, I'm going to equip this spell, and that's going to cost me X amount of mana. Here, your magic has basically a cooldown, and you also like build, when you're building these out, you build out sets of them. So it's like sets of 3. So I can do 3 fire spell, 3 electric. So that's really cool. And I think that the combat, like it does feel a lot more involved, but like as a result, as somebody who's like coming from those older games, like it requires so much more paying attention to what you're doing. and paying attention to, like, okay, I have this group of guys over here. They have guns. I have these rabid dogs that are attacking me, so I have to deal with them because they keep knocking my characters down. They can also, your team can help you up if you basically like run out of health. But if you run out of health, like you can't, you're basically restricted to, I can kind of move out of the way, but my core health, like you have like these two health systems. So it's like, if you run out of your main health, you have basically a timer that's kind of ticking down until you'll be dead. So it's I think like a way more active game than they've been in the past. Certainly not like an action adventure game, but it's like for Final Fantasy especially, you are doing a lot more shit now than you were ever doing in the past games.
That's cool. That's cool. So, yeah, I mean, that's Final Fantasy 15. Like, how far into it are you?
I'm like I said, I'm 10 hours into it. It was a rental, so I was like, okay, I feel like I've got enough out of this where I feel confident I'm going to buy it at some point. So I'm just going to put it away right now, and I'll come back to it for sure because it's a game that definitely had its hooks in me, and I was like, okay, I really want to do all of these quests because there's so much stuff, and it all seems like it's actually pretty good too. So
yeah, it also sounds like just mainlining the game's not super long. Like they were talking about speedrunners like getting around like the 12-hour range or something like that.
Yeah,
for the main story.
I could see that because if I don't know, they have like a level system assigned to like, okay, you want to be level 5 to do this one, level 10 to do this mission. But I think if you were going after those main ones, the main missions were actually pretty short. It felt like so. Yeah.
Well, I think that could be in a good sense because I know a lot of times the Final Fantasies, like we were joking about with Final Fantasy 13, like it took about 20 hours just to kind of get into, all right, this is when the game actually starts, and you still had like another 20, 30 hours after that.
Yeah.
Where it sounds like this one, you could, if you're just trying to get through and not complete everything, people are saying like get into it like 30 hours, 35 hours, something like that, get in and get out, which is still long, but not ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So. Can be good. Cool. Yeah, I'm super interested in that game. I just I've got too much stuff I'm trying to play right now. Mm-hmm. I can't set aside the time for even that much.
Yeah. That's going to be a lot, especially with us coming toward the end of the year here. Like,
yeah. I got a list of like 6 things I'm trying to play and get done with, and Final Fantasy's unfortunately by the timing of when it comes out, that's going to be like a January, February game probably. So
that's a good time for it too. But then like also you've got Horizon Zero Dawn and like other shit then coming out at that point now.
Yeah, because games, we don't get breaks for games except for maybe like July.
Yeah.
Other than that, we don't really get breaks anymore. So
yeah.
All right, cool. Well, so you've also been playing. So this is not necessarily a new game, quote, per se, although it is a new update to a demo, which is the weirdest thing.
It's super weird.
I've ever heard of.
Mm-hmm.
You've been playing some of that Resident Evil 7.
Yeah. So, did you play any of the Resi 7 demo?
Nope. Nope. As far as horror games go, I'm a little baby.
Yeah, that's right.
And no.
Yeah.
I go to games to relax. I don't have the time to get the shit scared out of me, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I've played basically every update at this point for that demo. So the initial demo was pretty straightforward. You kind of go into this house. You're in this house. You can find a videotape. You go into the videotape, basically. You kind of interact with it, and you are watching this film crew that's going through this supposedly haunted house. And one of the team members kind of veers off from the rest of the group, and then they find that team member dead, and then some other shit happens, I guess, at some point there, and everybody basically dies. Second update, so the first update, like the first demo of it, had like some stuff that was weird because it had no apparent use in the demo. So there was a dummy finger, basically. It's like this finger for a mannequin dummy thing, and nobody was quite sure of exactly what the hell that was. People data mined the shit out of that demo, and they couldn't find anything. So the second demo comes out, and they find that there's a piece of a hand, that like a fake hand, that you could attach that to, but there's still not really any idea of what is going on with this thing. At the core, it's still, like, that's still the experience. You going through it and watching the videotape. There's a new attic area at that point, but again, it's all kind of minimal, and nobody's quite sure what's going on with it. So this last update, the midnight update, has been a thing that a lot of people have been like, okay, I want this, right? Because they did a good job of building a mystery into a demo, update the demo so that you get people coming back, keep this mystery going, and then this is the final demo, so presumably it's going to kind of solve what's going on there. So they've added in so much shit into this demo. The first thing, the most obvious thing, is they've added in VR support for it. Previously, this demo did not have VR support, even though the
game... way it's meant to be played.
Yes. Yeah, so the first time that I tried playing it, I was like, okay, I'm just going to... Because I've played this demo enough that I was like, okay, I can go through the mainline demo, and I can experience it, and I'm not going to be in too bad of a spot. I'll say, to enjoy the game. So did the main line of it, went through the video. Like, okay, this kind of works. The way they have it set up now is that you can kind of point your head in a direction, and if you hit forward on your left analog stick, you'll move in that direction, but then you can also click the right analog stick to kind of turn your character 30 degrees. It's a bit weird, I think, and I don't know how some of that stuff's going to work with the combat in it. I think it's probably going to be pretty terrible. But I will, at some point, play through that thing fully in VR, even if it's not on my first time through. Because the second time that I went into it, they opened up a door that was previously completely unable to be opened. And being the giant baby that I am, as soon as I opened that door, I was like, okay, this is all new space that I've never experienced before. I'm going to take this fucking headset off right the fuck now. Like, I pussied out of it so hard. Because I didn't know what to expect, and as it turned out, it was probably the right move. Because they've added in combat into this demo, which is the thing that nobody had actually played with, and everybody's kind of wondering how it all works. So you can find a gun if you know what you're looking for. There is a... You go into this basement area, and there is a valve. And in the bathroom that is on the main level, which you had never found before until this new thing opened up, there was like the toilet was completely clogged with blood. And you can't flush the toilet because it's clogged. It's such a weird fucking demo. And then as soon as you get that valve and go to open up, go to leave, basically, a monster pops out. This infected blob of black goo with sharp, pointy teeth. And you go to open up the door, and like the family, as they're called, the bakers, the father of it, like blocks the door, and he kind of like looks and he's like, hey, 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 hey. And then you kind of have to like run around this monster and knock him over basically so that you can escape. You're kind of super powerless in this demo, which is a really good feeling, I think, for Resident Evil. Because for a long time, starting with, I'd say, 5, it felt like you could always be in a lot of control of the situation if you knew what you were doing. Which is not necessarily what I want out of a horror game. Or a game that purports to be horror.
Right.
So they've added in just a lot of stuff. So, like, you can try to shoot this monster. I don't think it actually dies because I unloaded, like, a clip of ammo into the thing, and it did not go down at all. So it's a really weird demo because then on top of it, like there are multiple endings for this demo. If you just basically go through the main line and do things as you could in the original demo, as soon as you go to exit the house, you get grabbed by the guy and he's like, "Welcome to the family," and he punches you in the face.
Right? Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah. If you go into the basement and you get attacked by this monster, you get infected by it. And once you actually reach the actual exit, which is in the attic area, you can actually find an attic key down in the basement where this monster is. So you have to go in there. Like as soon as you go up the ladder, like you see your arms start to like deform, and like it's pretty cool. And then there's a true ending where if you don't get attacked by him, and you get that key, and you get outside through the attic, you can leave, and that's the true ending of it. On top of all of that, the dummy hand and dummy finger thing actually has a purpose now.
Right.
And it's not a thing that I think that a lot of people would ever do unless they were data mining this game like the subreddit is and has been. So there was a clue that kind of popped up in the first update. This is where this whole thing gets really crazy, because there are clues that come out during certain updates that give you an idea of, okay, this is what I have to do, but I can't do that now. So the update is like this. You got to point to these graves, and so basically, like you find these specific areas, and you use the dummy hand, and you can like point to these bodies, basically, or where these people were killed. And then somehow you have to trigger these laughs of a little girl. And it's like, you have to walk up the stairway and look at this painting after you've done all of this other stuff in this specific order, then have the hatchet, swing it, then it'll laugh, then you can go downstairs, and then you can point at the basement door, which will get you to be able to unlock the next laugh. It's so fucking crazy. Like, it is the most insane bullshit. But if you do it, it unlocks an item for the main game. So there is a room that you can open up, and you will get a thing called a strange coin. I don't know what that does. Nobody knows what it does.
I know what those do. You give those dessert. No, that's...
Yes. Yep, you do that, and yeah. So, yeah, like, it's such a...
That's weird... That's some PT stuff right there.
It is. It absolutely is, and that was kind of what drew me pretty heavily to this demo initially, was like, okay, you guys are basically making a Resident Evil PT. I'm totally down with that. I think that's super cool. It is a game I'm going to play. Like I said, I will play it in VR at some point. I will play through that game in VR. It will not be my first time through. It No, I won't do it.
We don't want you to die, Addam.
I don't either. Like, I definitely had a moment where I was like, oh boy, I'm looking down this hallway. I'm having some trouble breathing because I'm so nervous with this. Like, yeah. The VR, I think, though, it looks good. It doesn't look great. Like, you don't get the same level of fidelity as you do with just the game running. Mm-hmm. Like, you take a hit, which is a thing you kind of expect, but I still think it looks pretty good. And yeah, like this whole path to Resident Evil 7 has been super crazy, and I think they're finally getting Resident Evil under control. Like, they had that problem for so long where they're just like, okay, we're gonna make Resident Evil 5. And I don't even dislike Resident Evil 5. I think Resident Evil 5 is fine as a co-op action game. But it's not what I really want out of a Resident Evil game. It's not a horror survival thing. 6 was just crap. You know, like it was a hot, steaming mess of garbage. Mm-hmm. And so for them to take this time and put something out like this, like they I think realized really heavily that, like, hey, Konami dropped the ball on this thing. They dropped it hard on PT. Why don't we just do that And we know that the game is coming out in 6 months because, yeah, like we're planning on putting it out in January, so fuck it. Let's do what they did, but let's do it right.
Yeah.
I think there's something admirable about that. I think they've got it, and I'm excited. I'm excited to play that thing. Like I'm getting the big ass collector's edition that's at GameStop, which like has like a giant like a haunted house basically with it. But I'm psyched about that game. I really am glad that they're getting it.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, just the fact that they shifted to all first person. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to imagine, or at least hope that didn't stem from the inclusion of VR, and that was kind of always the plan. Right.
Yeah, I gotta imagine that it was, because like it's not a game that feels like it feels like it was built for being in first person, if that makes sense. Like it doesn't like if you were playing this thing in third person, I don't think you would get the same experience. Like walking through that house, like I for action games and for a lot of games, like having a third person camera makes a lot of sense. But when you're in first person, that kind of does something tonally for a horror game that makes it work in a different way.
Well, I mean, there's a certain layer of immersion just by not knowing, by having a less of a field of view and being closer to everything. Like it's
not having control of, like not having full control of your camera is a huge deal with horror games. Like knowing like what you can't see. That's why those original games had, you could have put out a Resident Evil or even a Silent Hill that had that kind of camera where you can look around the environment, but they didn't want you to. They wanted you to look at specifically what they wanted you to.
Yeah, that forced perspective, yeah.
So that's really cool. I guess it's also got the writer of Spec Ops: The Line.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I didn't know about that until this week, but yeah, apparently he wrote that game. So I'm like, all right, let's fucking do this.
So you tell me there's going to be some fucked up shit that happens at the end of Resident Evil 7.
Yeah.
You were the bakers the whole time.
You white phosphored that house yourself.
Spec Ops was an interesting game.
It was. It wasn't necessarily the best playing game, but I thought that what they were trying for was way more ambitious than a lot of games were trying at that point. So.
Yeah, no, for sure. So that's a Resident Evil 7 demo. I mean, that's out on PS4. Whether you have VR or not, you can download that and check that out.
Yeah.
And that sounds interesting. I just, like I said, I played the original Resident Evil back when I could handle scary games a little bit better, and I'm sitting down to play games nowadays. I need something a little bit lighter than that, usually.
Yeah, that's fair. Like I
just can't.
Yeah.
Scared. Condemned Criminal Origins ruined me for horror games. Like that game destroyed me.
Really? That was the one.
I played a lot of that game, and then I just can't.
Okay.
Like
that's a really weird one for it to be.
That was the last one I played any serious amount of time in. Like I tried to play Amnesia, and I don't even think I made it to the point where the bad guys started showing up. Like I just got too creeped out. Yeah. I mean, the Resident Evils, those don't count because those aren't scary anymore.
Yeah, I mean, at like, really, like I said, anything beyond 5 was just kind of an action game. Even like the Revelations ones, which I thought were really good. At least the first one. I never finished up 2. The first one I thought was pretty okay. Like it was pretty. It had a good mix of light horror and action, but it was still like more of an action game.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm probably down more with that. But hey, that's just me. Different structure, different phones.
Yeah.
So I mean, the Resident Evil 7 stuff that came out of like we were previously talking about. That came out of the PlayStation Experience, where they out of nowhere just announced a ton of stuff, like an insane amount of stuff. And so, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. We're not going to go into detail about a ton of the stuff that was announced. Like, there's also a bunch of stuff that happened at the Game Awards. We're going to kind of just highlight, excuse me. We're just going to highlight the things that are most important to us or that we think was the most interesting. And I don't know about you, like the most interesting that came out of both of those things for me was The Last of Us Part 2. Because I think I loved the first Last of Us, and I think that sometimes that game gets kind of not a bad rap per se. I think it gets overlooked because of how late that game came out in the life cycle of the PS3. Like, because everyone remembers, Uncharted 2, and everyone remembers, whatever X game. And Last of Us, I think, is the best game that Naughty Dog has put out. Still, even Uncharted 4 is good, but I think it gets overlooked just because of how late that game came out. And so the idea of The Last of Us 2 is super exciting to me, especially when I heard some of the things that they were talking about it. They were saying they wanted to have a good story. They've been trying to come up with a sequel to The Last of Us for a long time, but they would kind of start and then it just never sounded good, and they would kind of kept going back to the drawing board, and then they finally hit on something that they really liked and they really wanted to turn into a story that was involving Joel and Ellie. And that it turns again into some type of grand, like, epic story. And that's really exciting to me, because I said for a long time that I didn't really think I needed to see a Last of Us 2, or if it was Last of Us whatever, maybe it was different characters or different part of what's going on in the world or something like that. So if they are putting us back with Joel and Ellie, and I mean, it's obviously from the trailer they put out, Ellie is older, Joel is still there. Ellie's bloodthirsty and ready to kill people and just murdered like 6 guys in that house that she was in, while she just calmly played the guitar. No big deal. Like, I'm super excited about what that game is going to end up being, if they're saying that they waited until they had a story that was worth telling.
I don't know if you heard like any of the stuff that came out of like some of the panels that were after that. So like, Ellie is the main character. Joel is a support character, basically.
Right.
And I guess they said that they wanted this story to be a game about hatred. So that sounds kind of fucked up and kind of cool. I will just say, I hope, for me personally, that game plays better. I've said this before, I'm not a big fan of how The Last of Us played. I didn't think that the stealth was great. The clickers, I was not a big fan of how the stealth worked with that game, but I thought the story was really good and like got really fucked up near the end. That ending is, I think that ending like ends on kind of like a whimper, but I think that's good for what they're going for. Like, they're not trying to be like, oh, you're gonna have this action-packed explosion-filled scene. Like, it just kind of ends, and it's like it almost felt like an art house kind of ending to that game, and I thought that was good. So I just hope that they make that gameplay better for me. I hope they work on the stealth a bit, and I don't know. I'm excited for it, but it is so far away at this point. Like, it is. They said like, this is super early. Like, so don't look too much into this. But yeah, it's a thing where I've wondered like, how are they going to? Because at some point you just kind of know like, they're going to go back to it. They're going to. They've had 2 releases of this game basically. Like, they're going to go back to it. So how do they do that? Like, do they go with Ellie and Joel? Do they like pick up down the road with them at some point, which is what this kind of looks like they're doing? Or do they just concentrate on different characters? And I don't know how you get better characters in a game that starts out as strong as Last of Us does. Like, that intro to that game sets the tone for everything that happens.
Yep. I mean, all the way to the very, very last bit of that game, where Joel is murdering innocent people. Spoiler. It all comes back to that the very first like 5 minutes of the game. Like,
and I don't know. Like, I don't know how they would be able to build those characters again. Like, how do you go? Okay, we're gonna show what this character was doing when the infection hit, or like, I think you're fine with it having that super fucked up start to it.
Well, and I also think that's good. It's good that they're handing it off to Ellie. You played as her a little bit during the Last of Us, and that was a really cool section where you played her before they handed it back to Joel. But I think that's a good idea because with all of the terrible stuff that Joel did in that game, we need to have someone who can get some sort of redemption for that. Which I gotta imagine is going to be part of what's going on in that game.
I'm almost like wondering with like, Joel is dead and this is all in her. It's all in her head. Joel is all in her head. She's just gone kill crazy. I don't know. I think it's cool though that they're putting Ellie on the front of that game. Like especially when you consider some of the shit they got from Sony about that game. Like I don't know if you've heard the stories about them trying to be like, hey, Ellie has to be the main character on the front cover of this because Joel is your main player, but the story is really a lot about Ellie. And Sony didn't want that. They want to have the guy with the gun on the front. And it's like, okay, this time we're just gonna make her the main character. Yep. We're just gonna have her be this bloodthirsty killer main character. Okay, cool.
Yeah. I was still surprised in the original Last of Us that they didn't just switch off and kill Joel in the middle of it because I really thought that's where it was heading.
Yeah.
I
thought it was dead like at the end, like that whole like end thing. I expected him to just fucking eat it, you know, like. Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad that they didn't because the way that game ends up is really powerful and really interesting. And but yeah, so yeah, it's super early on Last of Us 2, and it's just like I think that we've known that was probably going to happen. It's just really nice to get confirmation and kind of just a little tidbit of tone of what they are doing in that game,
right?
And even throw like a good 5 seconds of that score in there from Last of Us, which I thought was really cool in that trailer right at the end.
I don't know if you saw there was a recut trailer where it goes through like the entire beginning and up to the point where she's playing the guitar, and then she just starts rocking out to Rock Lobster. And that's pretty cool.
I didn't catch that one.
That one's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So I don't know. So Adam, I mean, what else stood out to you? And like we have a couple things written down here. We don't have to go in any particular order or particular list, but
yeah, I mean, also on the topic of Naughty Dog doing stuff, Uncharted Lost Legacy. So that thing, I kind of like pretty early on when I was watching that footage, I was like, this looks like an Uncharted game. And it turns out, yes, it's totally an Uncharted game. So you are playing as Chloe, who has not been seen. Was she in 3? I don't remember if she was in 3. I think she was, but I don't know.
She was in 3.
Okay.
Because isn't she with you near the end when Elena gets shot and she takes care of Elena or something like that? Or is that Sully? I don't remember. Someone gets shot. Who gets shot? Someone gets shot.
I don't remember who gets shot.
Maybe Sully gets shot. I don't know. I played this 3 years ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. But yeah, so you are taking on the role of Chloe. Kind of pretty, like, it's a pretty short trailer. Like, you are in India, right? Like, you're in India.
Yeah, it's India.
And that town whatever town they're in is just getting bombed from the sky, and you're trying to do spy shit. So, like, she kind of sneaks into this building, and then she gets ambushed by a bunch of people. Very much like in the tone of, this is a not cinematic. Like, it has interaction with it technically, in the way that Naughty Dog do. You know, like, you walk up to this door, and you open this door, and you kind of have this very minimal control over your character, which is fine. It doesn't say much about what this thing is. Apparently, this is a standalone game. We were kind of discussing this before. Like, there's some really confusing shit going on with how this works with the Season Pass.
Yeah, because they're saying it's included in the Season Pass if you own the Season Pass or the Uncharted 4 Digital Deluxe, because the whole point of the Season Pass was it going to come with a single-player DLC. Mm-hmm. But if you haven't purchased that, they're shutting that stuff off on December 13th.
Yeah.
And then you just have to buy it standalone after that, which is, it's weird.
So it's probably going to be, I got to imagine it's going to be a higher price point. Like, it's going to, because the Season Pass, like, right now is $25. I think it's probably going to be like a $40 game and that's how you're going to have to be, which is really weird because when I was watching this trailer, it was like they were so gung-ho on this is a standalone game. This is a brand new standalone Uncharted game. And it's like, okay, you guys announced the story DLC. What the fuck's going on with that? And then it turns out this is actually technically the story DLC. It's such a weird.
So I mean, this is the Halo ODST of the Uncharted universe,
basically,
where they started making this thing, and it probably was intended to just be the DLC single player for Uncharted 4, and then they started doing it, and they're like, oh, yeah, this is going to be way bigger and way more involved than we thought it was going to be, so we're just going to make it its own thing.
Yeah. Dying Light did that too with the following. Their season pass got a jump up in price. Like they never outright stopped selling the season pass like they did here. Like they will do here, but yeah.
Well, it reminds me kind of what they did with Fallout 4 too, because Fallout 4 doubled the price of their season pass after a while, where they were like, oh yeah, we have more stuff planned for that, so the season pass is actually $50 instead of $30 or $25 or whatever it was.
Yep.
Which was kind of weird, but there was that time frame where it's, if you got the season pass before that, cool, you still get all this stuff because they got to honor their agreement, so they're gonna have pissed off gamers if they announce a single player DLC for a game that you bought a season pass for that included the single player DLC and they didn't give that to you. That'd be bad.
Yeah,
that would be real bad. But yeah, I mean, this looks interesting. It's funny you were trying to talk about how it's kind of not cinematic, but a cinematic. It reminded me a lot of that early stuff you saw for The Order. It's not a good comparison to make.
It's not.
Well, it's not. That's a good comparison. I think it's apt.
Yes,
but you don't want to be compared necessarily to The Order 1886.
Right. Well, you know what other game you don't want to be compared with? Knack.
Oh God.
Let's do it. Let's go in on this. Let's go in on this fucking thing.
So they announced Knack 2, guys.
The greatest joke that has ever happened this year. In this shit trash fire of a year, we also get Knack 2 announced.
So, okay, they announced Knack 2. Like, everyone, it's been cannon fodder for jokes for a long time. People joking about, oh yeah, they're going to come out and announce Knack 2. And then they put PlayStation 4 Pro update into the original Knack. And people were saying, like, they're not really, like, they just probably did that as, like, a test of, proof of concept, right?
Yeah, it's the first game. It's, like, one of the first games that they put out. So, of course, they're going to put it out.
Yeah, no, there's lots of physics and stuff in there. And then they actually announced a Knack 2. And the funny thing is that before the show started, we were looking up some stuff about Knack 2 to try to find it. And you can barely find anything about Knack 2 on the PlayStation website.
Yeah.
It's not in their big games of 2016 PlayStation Experience thing. It's not like if you just do a search, the first like 4 things that pop up are about the original Knack, not Knack 2.
Yeah.
It's almost like Sony's in on it too, and they don't really want this to be a game. But Mark Cerny complained enough that they actually let him make it.
Like Windjammers, Danganronpa 3, like all of these other games have gotten way more coverage than Knack 2. I think obviously I think for some people like the biggest thing that came out of that was the Marvel vs. Capcom deal, but them going like in the middle of their show, we're gonna get Shuhei Yoshida out here, and he's gonna be his wonderful little self that should just never change. He's like the best. He's the best that we have. He's the best of all of us. He's like, we have something to announce from Worldwide Studios, and I'm like, oh, watch, it's gonna be Knack 2. Oh shit, it's Knack 2. Oh no. Oh god, no. Like, it looks like it's a multiplayer thing as well. Like, it looks like it's got local multiplayer with it. I never played that game, but everything about that game made me go like, okay, no, I'm good.
So I mean, the thing that was weird about what I heard about Knack was that it was this like everything about it was, hey, this is this cute little guy. He's kind of silly. He's kind of goofy, like aimed towards kids. But that game was supposed to be hard as shit. Like the game was supposed to be super hard. So like, if they're making Knack 2, they're gonna have to go one way or the other there. Like they either have to like double down and like, no, this is a game for adults. This game's gonna be hard. This game is gonna be whatever. Or they're gonna be like, oh no, this game's for kids. Like this is a co-op game to play with your little brother or your kids or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
they gotta go one way or the other.
Such-
I don't
oh
know.
my God.
Watch Knack 2 be like amazing, and all of us eating.
It's gonna be the one. It's gonna be the system seller for 2018.
It could be. Another thing that I thought was kind of weird that they announced at the PlayStation Experience, but I guess it's just because there's so much ties to PlayStation now, is that they announced the new Destiny thing that's happening.
Yeah.
The Destiny holiday event, which is, again, it's weird to see at a PlayStation Experience. I think of it as a PlayStation game because I have it on PlayStation. I get all the exclusive and whatnot. But that game is very much a multi-platform game, but whatever.
Yeah.
So they didn't talk a ton about what they're doing with Destiny. They're calling it the Dawning. It's going to start on the 13th. It comes back with the Sparrow Racing, which everyone expected. They said they would come back to Sparrow Racing. But they're also adding other changes to the game besides that. They're adding like an arcade mode or like a scoring mode to strikes, which sounds super interesting. I'm kind of curious to see what that looks like and is there rewards? Is that going to make the people that you're playing strikes with into assholes and like running ahead or not helping you? Or kind of curious what that actually means. They're going to be adding new gear and new weapons and all kinds of, and there's more stuff on there than what they're saying. But it is going to be a limited time thing, running until like January 4th or something, I think. But there's also rumors that when that ends on January 4th, that the Sparrow Racing is just going to end up being a permanent thing, and that's just going to continue on after that. Which I was kind of surprised that didn't happen last year, that they didn't just keep that and keep it going. I still have a freaking quest in my quest box for Sparrow Racing because I only did that like 3 times last year. So
I think that's. I'll say I think that's all that you need to do of it personally, but Yeah. So I don't know.
It seems fine. People seem to enjoy it. I mean, I'm always down for more Destiny. Give me a reason to come back, even if it's just for a week or something like that. I like checking in with that game. So I'll definitely check it out. I'm kind of curious what they're going to change with the strikes and stuff like that, because I think that stuff could use a little bit of a facelift compared to what it has right now.
Right.
So.
All right.
I think that's about it. I mean, like I said, there was a lot of stuff they announced at the PlayStation Experience.
Yeah, at the PlayStation Experience. There was also like 2. I mean, there was a couple other things though at the Game Awards. It was like 2 days earlier, so it's like you have a huge goddamn just chunk of stuff getting announced. Yeah.
So I mean, the craziest thing, and I still don't know what to make, is the Death Stranding stuff going on there. Like, I never expected to see a digital Guillermo del Toro in there,
or Mads
Mikkelsen either. Like that. He's like apparently the hottest thing like in Hollywood right now. Yeah, he's in the Star Wars. I mean, I obviously the first I ever heard of him was in the Casino Royale, which he was fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
He was great as Hannibal, I hear. Although I never actually watched that show, probably why it got canceled.
Probably.
Just me not watching it.
Probably specifically because of you.
People didn't.
Yeah, specifically you didn't watch it, so it got canceled.
So Death Stranding continues to be super weird and super messed up. Still involved babies somehow.
Yeah, so I don't know if you saw, like, there's so much weirdness. So there is. If you play, this is where it gets really crazy, and it's why I love Hideo Kojima. If you play the trailers on top of each other, in the original trailer, that baby disappears from Norman Reedus' hand. The funky fetus disappears. And if you play them on top of each other, that's actually when it disappears is when it shows up in the second trailer.
Now, see, someone on Reddit said that that's not true and that someone just edited it that way. So I don't know. If that is, it's brilliant.
I don't know, because Kojima said that it was intended.
If it is, it's brilliant. I think it was more like you have to line up the music or something like that. I don't think it's just playing both trailers from start.
Right.
I think it's something a little bit more complicated, but
the first trailer is actually a longer trailer. But
exactly.
It is a thing where so afterwards, Kojima had like a panel after the PlayStation Experience because they put out that trailer again, but with different music. And he had this panel at the PlayStation Experience where they announced that this game is being powered by the Decima engine, which is the engine that they are using for Horizon Zero Dawn. They are working basically with Guerrilla Games at this point. Like, it is a partnership, it sounds like, with Guerrilla Games on this thing. Like, they were talking about Mark Cerny, like, him and, like, Kojima and Mark Cerny went around to a bunch of different studios to, like, be like, okay, hey, here, like, what can you do for us, and how can you make this game work? It's actually, like, if you're into the tech side of stuff, it was, I think, kind of interesting to hear them talk about it, and for them to talk about, like, okay, well, this is the tech that's behind it, this is what we're kind of going for here. They're being very vague at this point on what exactly is going on. Kojima said, like, anything that people are reading into it is probably intended. Like, the way he described it is, this game isn't going to be out for a really long time, so I want people in the meantime to be able to play with the trailers, which is a really interesting philosophy towards, like, how trailers work in relation to games that are coming out in a really long time.
Yeah. It's not intended there to, like, necessarily tell you anything meaningful about the story or the like, hey, just, like, mess around with these and just look at these and try to get tidbits. I'm gonna start doing that whenever I do some type of project or whatever. I'll be like, you read into whatever it is that you find, and I meant to do that. Yep, totally
did.
That was intended, 100% intended.
The thing is that Kojima's enough of a fucking maniac that it probably actually was intended. Like, all of that crazy bullshit with the PT demo is like, I
like the idea of him going around to a bunch of different game studios and going, I have a really great idea for a game.
Yeah.
I have a lot of crazy ideas. Can you help me make that? Because I don't know how to actually, but I got some crazy shit, like, I want to do. I need help though with that. Like, that's
it's great.
That's good. I'm super excited for that game whenever that comes out.
Yeah, like they were like people have just, like, they're looking at, like, every possible thing with that. Like, there's, like, the badge that the Guillermo del Toro character is wearing, and it's like, it's the United States, but it's got this giant spider web across it, and it's, like, called the United Cities of America, and, like, it's such an interesting thing to just be like, this is what happens when Kojima puts out trailers, is people data mine the ever-loving fuck out of whatever they can.
Yeah. It's cool.
Which is great. It's fun to watch theory threads.
That's what the internet's really for. That's what the internet's really for, is for the people out there that have the time and the want to do stuff like this that I will never have the time or desire or knowledge of wanting to do or how to do.
Yeah.
Thanks, internet.
Yeah, good. You do the work for me.
Exactly. Let me know how that turns out. It's like all those ARGs that come out for various games and whatnot. It's like, I ain't got time to deal with all that. You guys just tell me what it means. And then,
tell me where I can find the trailer.
Yeah. So, I think that's pretty much it. Oh no, I had written one more down. It's a dumb one. It's a dumb one to end on. It's a real dumb one. But
dumb one.
Well, so we'll piece in two together. So there's two games that are coming back. I love that they're calling them definitive editions because they can't call them HD. So they have to come up with that. So I like the definitive editions. I think that's a good name for them.
Definitive is, I think, the best.
Well, sure, of course, yeah. So they're bringing back Halo Wars 1, which makes sense considering Halo Wars 2 is coming out next year, I think. That's all fun and good.
Yeah,
that's all fun and good.
Yeah.
The more crazy what in the world thing is that Bulletstorm is coming back.
Yeah.
Which is like, you know what? I like Bulletstorm.
I love Bulletstorm. That's why this thing pisses me off.
So the gameplay and stuff like that in Bulletstorm was fantastic. I love the, what is it? The skills for kills? No, that's Crack. That's Crack. No, that's Crackdown. I don't know. There's a thing like that, whatever they called it in Bulletstorm. It was killing enemies in interesting ways. Maybe it was skills for kills. Maybe they just stole it from Crackdown. I don't know. No, because in Crackdown was kills for skills.
Kill shots?
I don't know. Anyways, but it was super interesting, and it was kind of fun to play like an arcade game where it was playing around with the environment and the enemies and killing them in unique ways and not really having tough enemies per se to deal with, but just more like I'm trying to do cool things. But then also the main character and just kind of the dumb stuff that he said that a lot of times didn't make sense. And there's even moments where like you're called out on the dumb stuff that he says, not making any like that's cool stuff. But if you pre-order the Bulletstorm, I'm sure it's got a fancy name, but I don't know what it's called.
Bulletstorm,
the full
Reloaded,
clip,
full clip. That's what it was.
Full clip edition. If you pre-order it, you can play the entirety of Bulletstorm with Duke Nukem talking instead of Grayson, whatever the guy's name was in Bulletstorm. And I just no.
Yeah, like this comes out of Gearbox announcing we're partnering with small indie developers to publish their games. This time we're definitely not gonna get blamed for their shit. Basically.
Hey, you guys like this game. We're going to put our stuff onto this game.
Yeah,
you guys already said you liked it.
Fuck it. Right? Like it's terrible. Like Duke Nukem has been really terrible for a while. And like them just throwing on Duke Nukem skin and then having John St. John record the lines. That's just stupid. What I think is even worse is this is a full price game.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say.
This is a full price thing.
And as opposed to what many of these definitive editions do, you're not going to get it for free on PC if you own it already. Like, you're still going to have to pony up the $60, which basically just means no one's going to buy this. Especially considering the fact that the Duke thing is a pre-order bonus and not just included in the actual game.
Well, yeah. Any amount of... God damn it. Leave it to Gearbox to, like, ruin something good, right? Like, you know, I just... It's such a Gearbox move, like, of just being like, okay, we're going to take this thing, we're going to kind of put our name on it. It's a thing you guys like, and we're going to find a way to really just fuck it up as bad as we can.
I just don't know how you put this game up for $60. That's what I don't understand.
Yeah, I know. I don't...
Have any of these remake games come out at $60? Any of them?
They've usually been collections. If they are like
Last of Us was 40, Sleeping Dogs I want to say was 40, like
yeah, like the one that I'm thinking of is like the Arkham Collection.
Sure, which
was like 3 games. Yeah.
If you came out tomorrow and said Mass Effect Collection, I would say $60. Give it to me. Hell, I probably would pay more for that. But that's a whole different thing.
Was Skyrim 60?
Skyrim might. No, I don't know. I didn't buy that. I have it on PC, which is basically the same thing. I don't know about, but $60 for a lot of those games. I would have thought it was a little overpriced, but like I can get on board if you want to say Last of Us Remastered for $60 or whatever. Like Bulletstorm is not a game that. No. It's even
I'm looking like even Skyrim it looks like was 40 when it came out. So I don't fucking get that. Like I don't understand how you fucking price this game at that point, especially considering it was a game that undersold when it first came out at $60.
They're trying to recoup that money. So that's what they're trying to do. They don't understand the law of like how the economy works though. Like there's more to be found if you release a game for $30 than there is at $60 for some times. Like I probably would think like the whole Duke Nukem thing is dumb, but I would still be interested in checking it out.
I would at least be interested in checking out a remastered version of Bulletstorm. You know, like I liked Bulletstorm. Bulletstorm's a really good goddamn game that didn't get. Yeah.
Especially since the PC port's supposed to be real bad. I've thought about getting it at some points, but then I hear that it's pretty bad, and so I've held off.
Yeah,
picking up when it's seen it cheap.
Yeah, it's pretty not great. Not great. Yeah,
it's just someone needs to reel in these things for these remastered editions, though. Because it gets a little ridiculous sometimes, and then you see like they freaking like on the Black Friday sale they had like Metro 33 and Metro Last Light for like $7 combined, like
right.
Like they can those like those the Redux version of those for pennies, basically.
Yeah, I don't, man. I I don't get it. I just don't get how you price that game at that point. Like, I'm looking through a list of games that have been remastered right now, and, like, I'm not seeing anything other than, like, okay, like, other than the original remake of Resident Evil. Like, but that was a drastic difference. But, like, even that's, like, years ago since they did that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So basically, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they'll figure that out. Maybe they'll fix it. Maybe they won't actually come out at $60. It seems a little ridiculous, especially
it's coming out pretty quick, I think. Like, I don't remember what the...
No, I think you're right. I think it is pretty quick.
Yeah.
Like, I went, like, January or something like that, I thought, is what it was.
It's also a thing that, like, it's also another one of those things that, like, everybody knew about beforehand. Like, this was a thing that, like was like, oh, yeah, it was a sort of thing that was like, oh, yeah, the thing is totally coming out. I knew about that. And like, oh, we're pleased to announce Bulletstorm remaster. Oh, what?
They say that coming out. They say that coming out in April.
But
if you pre-order it, you get 15% off. So it's only $50 or whatever that comes. 50.
Great.
51.
Great. There's also a physical version of that game.
Of course there is. No, because they have to be physical.
Fuck me. Like, this is... It especially sucks because I really do like that game. I like that game a lot. Like, it was a game that, like, didn't Epic publish that initially?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Because then they have, like, it was a thing that was, like, it was bundled with a Gears of War beta, right?
That sounds right, yeah. Probably Gears of War 3 at that point?
Yeah, that sounds about right. I remember being like, that was the big selling point. I was like, oh, okay, I don't really care about Gears of War, so...
I just don't know. When did Gearbox get their hands on Bulletstorm? That's what I don't know.
I don't think they do. They're just
publishing this
They're
version?
just publishing it. So that was, like, the entire thing was, like, Randy Pitchford came up and he's like, we're announcing our partnership, our Gearbox partner program, or whatever it's called. It's Gearbox Publishing. So they're like, oh yeah, we're going to have a division that is just dedicated to just publishing stuff from independent studios. And this was like, People Can Fly, I think, got those rights back. They got themselves back a while ago. And nobody knew, like, what they're doing. They're like, we really can't afford to do a sequel. So maybe we do a remake, and it's like, okay, that's fine. Not at $60.
Maybe you can make a sequel.
God, yeah, it's
more tempting.
It sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, all right, that does suck. That does suck. But anyway, so yeah, they're saying April is when it's supposed to come out. So a little farther away, maybe some time to figure out what the hell they're doing there.
Yeah.
But that seems real weird. But again, that game playing through that entire game with Duke Nukem. Would it just be his dialogue, or would the other characters also be recognizing that he is Duke Nukem? Like, how far are they going?
I don't think so. But it's also a Gearbox thing, so I expect them to half-ass as much as possible.
Hey, Gearbox still has made 2 good games, okay?
They've made, like, 2 absolutely abominations.
They didn't really make Duke Nukem. Come on, give them...
They could have chosen to not put it out, though.
Could have chosen not to put it out.
They could have just bought the rights and been like, we're going to rework this and make it a better game. And I mean, technically, if you want to listen to the bullshit that Pitchford has said, they didn't even make Colonial Marines either.
They sure messed up everything about it.
They sure as shit did.
How they talked about it. And so
it's also, I guess, like, it's not surprising, like, the pricing on this thing, because they just put out another version of Duke Nukem 3D where they took down an old version of Duke Nukem 3D that actually ran better and had more content, so that they could sell a new version of it at, like, twice the price.
Oh, so, is this new one that came out not running that well? I thought it was supposed to be like... locked at 60 frames or something.
It's from what I've heard, like, it's not the best way to play it. Like, there was the version that came out from Devolver a while back. Like, I think it was called the Megaton Edition. That was like, it had like full, I think, mod support with it. Like, it had just like this really well built. Like, look, I'm not a huge fan of Duke Nukem, but there was at least something admirable about it, and it was like $10, which is the right price to put that game out at, not at fucking $20. For Duke Nukem? No.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
let's just all sit and pray that they don't mess up Borderlands 3. That's all I really care about. They can make all this other garbage and mess everything else up.
Border Worlds.
If whatever.
Yeah.
As long as they don't mess that up, I like Gearbox just fine. I don't. It's fine. Just
when do they put that thing out? Well, I mean, if you want to get really technical, Borderlands 3 did already come out.
No, that was Borderlands 1.5.
No, I thought it was Borderlands 2 minus a half.
I don't know. It was the pre-sequel, whatever. I hear that's not that good. But I don't think that wasn't supposedly made by Gearbox proper either, though. So who knows?
What games have they made?
I don't know. They made Borderlands. Borderlands 2 was a fantastic game. Damn it. Fantastic game. I love that game.
Games they've made.
Like I almost got talked into buying Borderlands 2 on PS4 because my buddy was like, I kind of want to check that out, and it was on sale for like $30 with the Handsome collection or whatever. And then I was like, no, I already own this and all the DLC on PC. I do not need another console. Don't have time to play through Borderlands because Borderlands 2 is so good. Ugh. All right.
What if they made a game that like had the art style of Borderlands?
Okay.
Right?
But could it be a
also
multiplayer game though?
Yeah, like a multiplayer online battle arena.
Okay, you got me sold.
Okay, cool. I think this game's gonna sell big time.
That's cool. No, actually no. See, you were getting wrong there because all MOBAs are free to play, so it's fine. They'll do that obviously from the get go, and they won't have any problems.
Well, look, I mean, if you ask Randy Pitchford, it's never going to be free to play.
Maybe. No
matter what you define as free to play, even if you can play the game for free, it won't be free to play.
All right, let's get out of here. We'll
be talking about that game. I think at the Game of the Year stuff too.
Yes, so. not in the Game of the Year category.
No
way.
No.
All right. As always, you can find us on our websites, pixelrelated.net. If you want to shoot us an email, you can do that at feedback@pixelrelated.net. I am Kyle. That is Adam, and we will see you next time.